What's going on, fellow reformers? It's the Reformation Keegan. I'm here today with another comic analysis. Today we're sticking with the Flash theme once again because we have the Flash Blitz by the legendary Jeff Johns. And I gotta say, this is probably my favorite Flash story of all time. This trade is from 2004, and it also has the Flash Run Riot in as well, all three parts with the ever great Gorilla Grodd, who's one of my favorite villains in DC history. So it's just a three-part story, but it's really good. And you get to see the intricacies behind Gorilla Grodd and the intelligence behind the character and the misconception of gorillas in Gorilla City and in general in day-to-day life. So it's really intriguing because Gorilla Grodd ends up escaping, and escaping Iron Heights, that is, and the ending conflict is very intriguing, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Anyway, that is also in this Flash Blitz, like I previously stated, but I'm very excited to discuss this because I think Blitz has a lot of intricacies in it. This is, in my opinion, one of the best stories I've read, and I've read a lot of comics, but I really think this is one of the best because it has such a strong theme of characterization and a strong theme of tragedy, which I've mentioned this before in my reviews of Jeff Johns, but I think Jeff Johns' strongest contribution is his ability to characterize characters and give them little intricacies that are often overlooked when looking at the constituents revolving around characters in comics. Because a lot of times characters in comics can become too bland or they can become too intricate. It's really hard to find that fine balance in the middle. But I think Jeff Johns does it perfectly because you have Wally West, obviously, you have the background of Barry Allen, you have Linda, who's the wife of Wally West. You have so many people like Jesse Quick. You even have Jay Garrick in this. You have Joan Garrick, who has cancer, and then she has to overcome that, so they have to relocate. And then you also have the Rogues. So you have you have Pied Piper, you have Captain Cold. So many Blacksmith, like so many different great characters. Peekaboo as well. So there's a strong theme of characterization that Jeff Johns really delves into, and I think that the Flash run of his has really exploited that because other writers like Grant Morrison and Mark Waid, they're also very strong at characterization, and Jeff Johns is right at their level. Like if I had a Mount Rushmore of comic writers, those three along with Alan Moore I think would probably be on that list, because I think each of them know their audience, and they also know the history of the character, and you can see that with Jeff Johns' run on the Flash because there's a huge theme of mythos with Barry Allen because Barry Allen had died in Crisis on Infinite Earths. If you haven't read that, I also highly recommend it. And if you are a DC comic fan, I think you have to read Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it should be one of the first you read. I probably honestly should have read it a bit earlier, excuse me, during my comic run because I think I would have understood things a bit better, and then I wouldn't have to reread a couple of the stories that I've had to read. So I would read Crisis on Infinite Earths as one of your first, to really understand the conventions of the canon of DC. And Mark Waid is also doing that right now with the new DC universe. So if you read Crisis on Infinite Earths, I would read the new DC universe, the new history of it right afterward because it's really good and it makes sense and it's in line with what happens with even Barry Allen in Crisis on Infinite Earths. So what Jeff Johns does here is he gives you a whole mythos of Barry Allen, because we have Wally looking up to Barry, almost like a father figure, and Wally essentially is trying to live through Barry Allen, who's been deceased for quite a while. But it's almost like everything he does as the Flash, he wants to do in Barry's honor, so he doesn't really have that sense of identity on its own. And again, identity is another strong aspect of characterization that Jeff Johns really sinks his teeth into. And he also does it through the Rogues, like I said earlier. But through Wally's trying to find his own identity by not distancing himself from Barry, but also trying to complete noble acts and also trying to be Wally West and the Flash at the exact same time simultaneously, which is obviously proven very difficult to do. And most people already know that Wally West is the Flash, which means the cat's out of the bag, the secret's out, and it's very difficult to hold it back. And another example too is with Linda. So his relationship with his wife Linda is very, very strong, and they're going to end up having twins. But I don't think Wally is necessarily ready for that. Not that he's too immature in the sense of behavior, but he might be too immature in the sense of age, because he has so many other obligations as the Flash currently, especially in Blitz, which again comes back to a strong theme of tragedy. Because the most tragic element of Blitz is the story of Hunter Zolomon, who was a part of the police force. So he was very, very good at his job, but his wife Ashley left him, and he underwent his own various forms of tragedy. He lost feeling in his lower half of his body and his legs, and he wanted to regain that movement. And him and Wally have a major disagreement over the aspect of time, which again is another huge theme that Geoff Johns uses, especially in the last two issues of Blitz. So the aspect of time gets debated because if you ruin the timeline, you can ruin history. And Wally never went back to change history because he didn't feel it was morally correct. So here's the bigger question. What is morally correct to the universe in comparison to what's morally correct to yourself? Because that's the big debate here. And Hunter Zolomon wants to do what's morally correct for himself because he wants to regain movement in his legs again, and he can only do that through the cosmic treadmill. So the cosmic treadmill would give Hunter the ultimate opportunity to go back and fix the past and then regain movement of his legs again. So because Wally doesn't think it's morally correct in the grander scheme of things to do that, this creates the massive conflict going forward. And what happens is these two feud over it, and Wally doesn't really think he's done anything wrong, but Hunter Zolomon, aka Zoom, thinks that Wally is the main person responsible for his tragedy. So what happens is when Wally's gone one day, Hunter, he sneaks into the room that the cosmic treadmill is in, and he tries to tinker with it, and then it explodes. And because it explodes, he becomes Zoom. And Zoom is like the alternate to Flash, if you don't know. So if you know any Flash history, you would know that Barry Allen and Thawne are the originals. So he's the reverse Flash, and then obviously Barry Allen is the original Flash, minus Jay Garrick, who's also in this story. So what happens is he becomes Zoom. And with Zoom, his abilities are a little bit different. He still has metahuman speed, super speed, but he can also really control the timeline, which I think makes Zoom extremely, extremely problematic for anybody. Because I saw this question on Twitter. It said, "Who's more dangerous, Zoom or the Joker?" It's obviously Zoom. Like, who would you rather? I think the question actually was, who would you rather have as your rival? And I would rather have the Joker as my rival. Not that I'd want any of them as my rivals, but if I had to pick one, it'd be the Joker, because I don't think the Joker has as much power as Zoom does. Zoom can control an entire timeline and change the course of history and change reality. And what he does is he alters reality for Wally, because he makes Wally revisit the announcement of them having twins, and is also responsible for Linda's miscarriage. That's right, Linda has a miscarriage with two babies, one boy and one girl, as Zoom reveals. And what happens is this theme of tragedy turns into a theme of revenge that's derived from tragedy. And this is actually a very relatable aspect, not that anybody should or would take on the extremes that Zoom has taken to try and wipe Wally away and also take away his life and also, gain revenge for her own self-indulgence. But you can understand as a human being when, even if it's wrong, if you've been morally wronged by somebody, you want to exercise that revenge because you believe that they caused you a form of tragedy, and you want them to feel the same agony that they're feeling throughout, again, that same tragedy. So it's a really interesting concept that Geoff Johns creates here. And with Hunter Zolomon, like, we can see it throughout the previous, stories that he seems to be a very level-headed individual, but then when he becomes upset by something like this, obviously you can sympathize with the fact that he can't feel his legs, and then Ashley's left him. So it's a very difficult situation. And you can see in the art in this where you have fragmented apparitions, basically, of the individuals that have caused some sort of tragedy for Hunter Zolomon, who's Zoom, and he has this internal battle between Hunter and Zoom, and that really costs him the fight at the end, especially when he's racing with with Wally back into Keystone City. So there's a lot of intricacies with this story, and I think Blitz is really good because it shows a revenge tragedy and how when you're blind to revenge, no matter what physical abilities you have, not being able to have a vision going forward is what's going to cost you at the end of the day, which is really why Wally gets his victory back. But I also loved the leadership theme of Jay Garrick in this too, because he's essentially the wise man for Wally and all this, because Wally will let his emotions take the best of him, and because Jay Garrick is the more experienced Flash and the oldest Flash, he's a little more level-headed. So he can give Wally that fatherly advice that he really needs, because Wally's still pretty immature. And we can see that Wally at the conclusion of Blitz in issue 200 feels like he's not ready to really be the Flash, and it shows how much responsibility one takes when they are the Flash. Because in almost like a flashback, or not a flashback, but in a really soliloquy-themed moment with, deceased or characters that, from a perspective of dramatic irony, you're not supposed to see, you can witness the conversation between Barry and Wally, which I think is beautifully written by Jeff Johns. And it's basically having Barry denounce the responsibilities of being the Flash, and saying you can't change history from running, and you have to learn from your you have to learn from your mistakes, and you have to run forward, not backwards. And this is really awesome because then you have Hal Jordan come in, and Hal Jordan basically serves as the theme of alternate reality here. Where he kind of helps Wally forget, in a way, of who the Flash is, and for the Flash to remain nameless. Only, obviously, they might know who they are, but in some ways they don't, as seen on these pages, page 216 and 217. But what happens is you see how much stress carrying the mantle of the Flash will take, not just on Barry Allen in the past, but Wally in the present and in the future. So the Flash remaining ominous in a way, and remaining mysterious and not known to the public, is basically what the Green Lantern advocates for here, and changes, because someone knowing that identity compared to your civilian identity will carry a massive burden that not everybody's equipped to carry. That's why people like Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne have never publicly revealed who they are, at least not consistently within the canon, because they know what the effects would be for not just them, but their families, their loved ones, and everybody else around them. Whereas Hunter Zolomon is so misconstrued by revenge, the theme of identity almost doesn't matter in this. It's almost like a perspective of nihilism, where all he cares about is gaining vengeance and retribution, which I said previously will make you blind to proper decision making no matter what physical capabilities you have. So that's what I have based off the Flash. That's from an English literature's point of view, and I think the main thing with Jeff Johns' writing, like I said, with characterization, is he really knows in his diction how to get pathos and emotion out of his characters, which obviously I think is really well done with Zoom. So that's what I have for now. This isn't, like I said, your stereotypical review. I'm more giving you an analysis on a bigger picture, yet more intricate perspective on characterization, and also what literary techniques are used to make these stories as fun and as interesting as they are. So let me know what you guys think. What should I analyze next? I have many comics that I could do, but I'd like to hear suggestions from you. And most of all, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 500, and once we hit 3,000 watch hours, I can put out better content for you, as I'll become a YouTube partner. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.